Hello, my name is Dawson Church. I'm the author of several best-selling science books, and I've been involved in over 100 clinical trials. I am so delighted you are here. I'd love to share with you how my life was changed completely by a big choice I made when I was just 45 years old. Before that, I was in the profession of book publishing, and my whole career was built around that. I built several respected brands in that business, but I wasn't serving my heart. I wasn't serving my highest purpose. I saw the suffering in the world all around me, and I learned energy therapies that I knew could help people. I'd seen miraculous healings. People with autoimmune diseases just had them go away. People with chronic pain that had sapped their energy for years just get better. Mental health conditions like PTSD, anxiety, and depression disappear. And also, we now have the research, the hard science, the empirical evidence to show that these energy techniques really worked. So I decided to get certified as an EFT tapping practitioner. Later, I founded EFT Universe, which has grown into the world's most influential EFT tapping training program. On a recent live call, one of the participants said to me, Dawson, for 46 years, I suffered from fibromyalgia. And now, thanks to EFT Universe, I no longer do. Doesn't it just make your heart sing to hear stories like that? I remember tapping with veterans at Fort Hood, the biggest military base in the US, working in circles of veterans as we tapped on all the trauma they had, all the PTSD they brought into the room after serving their country. I met one of the wives of a veteran after that session, and she said to me, Dawson, my husband's back. Since he's served in Iraq, he's been angry, he's been moody, he's been withdrawn, he has been abusive to our children, and suddenly, after the tapping, I at last have my beloved husband back. We see miracles of healing like this as practitioners every single day. In 2007, I co-founded the Veterans Stress Solution, and we've gone on to offer free PTSD treatment to over 22,000 veterans. Right now, we're also training practitioners in conflict zones like Ukraine and Palestine. We're making a difference in the world. Our practitioners have also worked with NFL and Major League Baseball players. Many Olympic champions are now tapping away their barriers to success. The certification program at EFT Universe is what makes all this possible. Many people start a whole new career that they love, that does speak to their heart. Others offer tapping sessions part-time or layer EFT into their existing careers. People like mental health professionals, psychotherapists, addiction counselors, medical professionals like doctors, nurses, physician's assistants, chiropractors, osteopaths, nutritionists, healing professionals like teachers, like life, sports, and health coaches, school counselors, occupational therapists, energy medicine practitioners, employee wellness program professionals, Reiki practitioners, meditation teachers, and yoga instructors. Clinical EFT is evidence-based, and our certification relies on that base of scientific fact. Our standards are so high that for over a decade, our trainings have been accredited for both medical professionals by the American Medical Association and mental health professionals by the American Psychological Association. We presented clinical EFT in many settings like the Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, and Kaiser Permanente. We're now training therapists in Veterans Administration hospitals at their request. Our certification is backed by over 200 clinical trials. The course itself has 6 online, self-paced, self-study modules, and also 2 live workshops, and you work one-on-one with a mentor. The Ultimate EFT Certification Program is backed by over 200 clinical trials. This is real science. These techniques really work. The course itself has 6 online modules, also 2 dynamic interactive live workshops. Also, you work one-on-one with a mentor. You graduate in a year as a competent and confident practitioner. I'm also delighted that our graduates are able to make a great living. I was talking to one named Monica Evans recently. She lives in Lake Tahoe in a cottage on the shores of the lake in a beautiful part of the world. And she said there was only one problem with my lifestyle: how to make a living. And she said her exact words were, EFT Universe came along and solved that problem for me. She now is able to live the life and the lifestyle she chooses and loves and make a great living doing that. So don't miss this opportunity. Listen to your heart. Is it calling you to address the suffering in the world, make a difference, and also have a fantastic new career? Please join me by clicking below to find out more about the Ultimate EFT Certification Program. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. We're going to get started in just a moment, but if you have a friend who you know is meant to join us, be a good friend, reach out to them, let them know. I love this community because it's a lot of like-minded, big-hearted people. If you are new here, I'm Jessica. I'm a Jessica Ortner, a New York Times bestselling author and the co-creator of the Tapping Solution app. And like many of you, I am a very busy parent. And so I really value your time. I applaud you for showing up. And our intention today is to give you an immense amount of value. Today, this is about finding balance, purpose, and a greater income. So I'm thrilled to introduce you to someone who I've known for many years. I think it's safe to say he's the happiest person that I know with the best.
Oh, I like that introduction, Jessica. Thank you.
Well, now, doesn't let me give you the more formal introduction besides happiest person and best laugh. Dr. Dawson Church is a pioneering researcher and author in the field of energy psychology. He is the founder of EFT Universe and the National Institute of Integrative Healthcare. His best-selling books, The Genie in Your Genes and Spiritual Intelligence, have transformed how we understand healing, stress, and happiness. I always love to get a chance to talk to him. Hi, Dawson. Welcome.
Jessica, what a thrill to be sharing this time with you and so many members of our wonderful community. It's so great to be here.
It's so great to be here. And we were talking before the recording, and we were reminding ourselves that even though we see miracles every day, sometimes you see all these results and you almost get used to it. And you have to take a step back and go, this is quite remarkable that people are healing, they're transforming, the ripple effect this work is having, and the way tapping has really transcended where now you're seeing it in hospitals, in the VA, in other institutions. I mean, I feel like I've had a front row seat to this unbelievable explosion of scientific research. So I want to start there. What are you most excited about? What's the research in the last, say, 5, 10 years that has made you the most excited?
Well, Jessica, the research has shifted over the last few years because initially it was largely psychological research. And we want to make sure that our psychological states, that our moods, that our mindsets are as wonderful as possible. And so all the early research was focused on that. How do we relieve the burden of anxiety, of depression, of PTSD? And so for about 20 years, I was very focused on PTSD research, especially PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And even if you don't have PTSD, just having a life and childhood events that sap your sense of well-being really affects the course of your life very dramatically. And so that was all the early research, and it was powerful to see people shift, people who had been carrying traumas, carrying burdens, sometimes since childhood, and then they tap and then they just find themselves shifting. One woman who we had have a video of in our certification program had been bullied as a child. Another boy had thrown rocks at her, boy in her class. And so for decades now, she'd had this narrative that I'm not safe and the world isn't a safe place and people can attack you unexpectedly. We tapped on that, and suddenly it was miraculous to watch layer after layer after layer of trauma just falling away as she tapped, and eventually she dropped down from a 10 out of 10 to a 0 out of 10 around that event. So we show people videos like that, and we let them know it's possible to do that following the clinical EFT techniques. But what's shifted now in research in the last few years is that we've moved to investigating what these shifts in psychology result in the body. And your psychology becomes your physiology. Psychology becomes physiology. If you are stressed, if you are tense, you're going to have high cortisol. That's going to drive a whole slew of unfavorable biological changes, including rapid aging. And so we want to shift our psychology. And then the newer research is looking at our biology. So we're looking at neurotransmitters and hormones and our nervous system, what's going on in our brains. And that is so remarkable because we're seeing literal shifts in gene expression. In one study, 72 genes changed after a 1 hour EFT session. In another study with veterans that I
So
did over
wait,
the
let me
course of,
stop you there, Dawson.
yeah.
What does it mean for your genes to change? So these genes changed. What's that mean?
Oh, I'm so glad you interrupted me because I get so enthusiastic about this. I can talk for 5 hours without taking a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what it meant in that particular study was that we saw gene expression dialed up significantly. Again, and statistical significance is a really important concept in research. These were significant changes to 72 genes. And these genes code for suppression of breast cancer, suppression of prostate cancer, suppression of throat cancer, suppression of colon cancer. So those are four of the 72 genes. Another gene codes for the myelination of neural sheath in your hippocampus. And that's just a bunch of $10 words for the thickness of the insulation around the neurons in your memory and learning centers. It got thicker, and with thicker insulation, signals can travel through those neurons better. The genes that build those neural sheaths were increased. The genes that had to do with your cell metabolism, how well your cells work, how well the fundamental processes of your body worked, those were upregulated. All kinds of anti-aging and general health genes were upregulated. So this means that you change your psychology through tapping and your biology changes dramatically. And that was in 1 hour. So that's why this is so exciting.
It's unbelievable. And we experience it. I mean, we see it for many years. I would see through my own experience with working with clients is someone taps and then they're like, oh, all of a sudden I just lost 10 pounds. Or I have more energy, or my sleep is better, and I didn't even tap on sleep. And you're seeing that the work that we do isn't contained in this little bubble. It really impacts every aspect of your life. And now we're seeing, I mean, we have seen this for years. We've seen people sleeping better, being healthier, looking better, having that emotional change. Now we see the data. Why is having this data? Why is it showing what's happening to the body? How has that impacted how tapping has been seen and its ability to spread?
Well, when I got involved with energy psychology around 2000, we'd had Roger Callahan, famous clinical psychologist, promoting tapping for a long time. And then one of his students, Gary Craig, and a whole bunch of other people who became EFT masters were really developing the field. And they were saying, well, we see these miraculous healings in people. Why do we need research? Why do you need to go and do studies? Because you just tap and you feel better right away. It's self-evident this stuff works. Yes, it is. But just because there are a bunch of stories on the internet about how well tapping works doesn't mean that's credible medically. I mean, imagine if you went into your doctor and he said, I want to do an operation on your eyes. And you said, well, is there research behind it? he said, no, but there's some stories on the internet.
Right.
So these people who were saying, oh, there's stories on the internet, I was like, no, I don't think so. We need credible research. So I put together a group of researchers, initially doing very simple studies, eventually doing much more complex studies, and we pulled them together in the under the banner of the National Institute for Integrative Healthcare. And actually, you and Nick were some of the early funders of that, and are still the largest funder of that research. And it has produced all kinds of shifts to where now we can point to studies, over 200 studies of EFT, over 100 studies published in non-English language journals all over the world, as well as more than 100 published in English language journals. So there's an enormous plethora of sound research published in peer-reviewed medical and psychology journals. Now, when I go to a hospital administrator, or when I go to a VA conference, or when I talk to somebody at the National Health Service in the UK, I'm not saying there are a bunch of stories on the web. I'm saying there are 54 randomized controlled trials. There are 7 meta-analyses. There is all this research, much of it published not in obscure journals, much of it published in mainstream, high top tier medical journals and psychology journals. So now that allows us to go with confidence. Like when I was testifying before Congress, I then could take these slides, these PowerPoint slides full of studies, hand those to members of Congress and say, here's the research. That got us somewhere in a way in which the anecdotes never could have.
Mhm. Even though we've been doing this for so long, we are still in, it seems like the early stages of what is really possible. And that's why I think it's such a blessing for those who are watching to have learned to be learning tapping in this moment in time, because we really are in the forefront of history and how things are going to change with the way that we view supporting other people and supporting challenges. And we're seeing this explosion, this rapid spreading of this, which I feel like every year I'm like, wow, we've grown so much. And then the next year it's not 10% more, it's like double. It's like we're starting to get to this pace where these doors are opening because of the research that you helped lead. And research leads to other research. I'm hearing so much about other research studies now unfolding. And so I want to mention that because I always feel so grateful to be here in this moment of time, to be in this beginning stage as we watch things transform. And I think those who learn tapping now have a very big advantage.
They do. And we also, very early in the game, defined EFT. When I asked people in the early 2000s, I said, well, we call it emotional freedom techniques, plural techniques, not technique, not one technique. I said, we know there are a group of techniques. How many are there? And nobody could tell me. Nobody could define how many techniques there were. So I said, let's count them and let's get consensus on what they are. So we had an expert working group of some wonderful professionals that put together this definition of these are the official techniques, and there turned out to be 48 of them. We call that clinical EFT. We then did all the research using that same format. And so we compared apples to apples in every study using the EFT manual. So those 48 techniques made their way into the EFT manual and made sure the techniques were consistently applied. And so you want to learn all of those techniques. Most people only learn the first 9 techniques. They may learn the basic recipe, the full basic recipe with the eye movements, but we find that those basic techniques are really effective. If you watch videos, for example, on our YouTube channel, or if you go onto your app, and you'll find that people are often using just the simplest and often the briefest of those sessions, guided sessions, and they're having results. But then what happens when you have somebody with complex PTSD, recurring issues, a chronic disease, multiple diseases. So many people are now being diagnosed with multiple diseases. What do you do with those? That's where those 48 clinical EFT techniques come in, and you can help people. Like we have a book called EFT for Cancer, showing how EFT is applied for cancer patients and some of the miraculous shifts that they've experienced. How do you deal with somebody with an incurable, quote unquote, incurable disease, lupus, fibromyalgia? So we now have a whole suite of techniques that can tackle even the toughest and most persistent issues.
These stories are incredible. Is there a story that really stands out that surprised you when you used EFT tapping for for an individual? I
There's
know
so
you
many. It's
probably have
hard to
like a
pick one,
thousand. That's probably
Jessica.
the hardest question for me to ask. But we hear, but I love to bring it to like the person. How did they transform their life? Like those stories always are so inspirational.
One happened to me actually in the last couple of weeks, which I'll share with you. And I want to also ask you the same question right after that. I want you to share one story with me that made you right
Okay.
stop. But
Yeah.
usually if I'm doing live workshops, and so I do quite a few live workshops. Some are on Zoom, some are in person at various institutions in different parts of the US and Europe. And so I usually pick somebody who I think has an incurable condition or an issue that's so hard that it might be unhealable. And so I picked somebody for my most recent one, my most recent live class, and this woman had a TBI injury, traumatic brain injury. She'd had this injury for 15 years. She tried enormous numbers of treatments, both conventional and alternative, and she had not been able to resolve the issues resulting from the TBI. It had been a boating accident, and she'd been spun around in a small boat that was exposed to high winds. And in the spinning, she'd been thrown around the cabin, hit her head hard against the side of the boat, had this traumatic brain injury, had it now for 15 years. And she said, when I walk, I can't see which of the two visions of the floor below me is the real one. I see two floors and I don't know where to put my feet. And so she's had this for 15 years. And I thought, okay, this is, I don't know if EFT can possibly help with this. And she had a number of emotional issues as well around that. So I tapped with her and then I had her stand up and she walked across the floor, no problem whatsoever. I said, how many floors do you see? She said, my vision's fine. I can see exactly where I'm going now. So I'm always startled by those. And even when I pick people I think that can't be helped, it's purely a physical issue. Often it turns out to be highly spiritual, highly psychological, highly emotional. We find the emotions behind that. We tap on those, and our bodies just regulate. Bessel van der Kolk's famous book is The Body Keeps the Score. Her body had been keeping that score for 15 years. We changed the score with that tapping session. So I love that we can serve people like that. Otherwise, they'll be suffering 10 years from now, 15 years from now. She can still be suffering in that way. And we just are so privileged to have this gift. We can do this simple thing with them, and then they get better.
Yeah, and it's those physical things that are amazing because when someone's saying, how sad are you on 0 to 10 or how anxious do you feel, it's incredibly helpful. And at the same time, for someone who's an outsider looking in, they're like, well, that's subjective. But when you have someone who couldn't raise their hand before, higher than this, do the tapping, and then they're able to raise their hand fully. I've seen that so many times with the way the body responds. That's quite incredible to see for someone to say, oh, I can now walk and I can walk clearly. I'm not losing my step because I can see where the floor is. Those transformations are incredible. And man, I was trying to think about, what's a story that was incredible, and it's the same thing. It's just there's so many, but the one that pops out, and I think it's because I am a mother of small kids, is a woman who lost her parents in a car accident. She lost both her parents, and she could not drive. She couldn't get on the highway, especially. And for many years, she kind of got by, and then she had children. And when you have children, you have doctor's appointments to take them to and play things to get them to. And suddenly she realized that her world was shrinking more and more and more because she felt like she was a prisoner in her house and she wasn't able to give her kids the life that she wanted. And she just simply started doing tapping. She was using, in this case, she was using our app and she started just tapping on the experience of going on the roads and what would come up when she would think about driving on the highway. And just by tapping at night and being consistent, and I think consistent means like she did it for about a week. She started driving and it got easier and easier. And now, she sent us this long message saying, I'm driving. I can bring my kids to the doctor. I can bring them to the park. Like her whole world opened up when the fear was so debilitating in the past. And that I think is so unbelievable.
When
So
I get back from work every night, often I'm leading a group call and tapping people in a group. I get to come home and talk to my wife, and if we have guests, the guests, or my kids or grandkids, and I get to share these stories with them. And I just leave every day's work with such a full heart. Just sometimes I'm in tears as I'm explaining, trying to describe these cases to people around me and my family. Because again, you think about that woman and her world shrinking and contracting. Now it's expanding and will keep on expanding. That's what we get to do for a living.
yeah, yes. And I really find that people who do this work, I look at them as light workers, and we need more light workers. We need more healers in this world doing that. Especially when we're dealing with more complex things where people do want that one-on-one and that support to get through it. And so tell us a bit like why should we get certified? Why is that such an important component?
There are levels of understanding and applying EFT, and so we send people to the Tapping Solution app because we know that's a place that's so accessible. There have now been over 10 million sessions in the app. I did a study, a formal clinical trial of the app. We showed that it's incredibly effective. We saw large reductions in anxiety and stress in those app sessions. So that's something that we just recommend people start with and go there and have it as a go-to. Have it on the home screen of your device. Okay, so start there, and then you're going to start to hit issues after a while where the simpler forms of tapping are need to be supplemented by more. And so, for example, during the Tapping World Summits, we've done exercises now on the eye movements and how important the eye movements are. And the people who watch the summits say, wow, I did the eye movements. I was able to get much further on this big, long-standing issue of mine than before. And those eye movements we now know from EEG studies are incredibly effective and can address issues that just simply EFT can't. And then you start to go into really long standing personality structures that are very, very difficult to budge with any kind of psychological method, not just tapping, but any kind of psychological method. For example, pre and perinatal trauma. What happened when your parents were having a big, loud fight and you were a fetus in the womb and you were hearing these violent sounds? I've got some ultrasounds of fetuses in the womb while the parents were having a fight, and that little fetus is jerking around there in the womb, getting traumatized. Cortisol floods the womb from the mother's body when that happens. Many of us learn to be stressed biochemically like that before we even were born. You definitely are not going to be able to address that at the superficial level of tapping. You need a practitioner, you need to do deep work. And so that's where those 48 clinical EFT techniques really shine. We work with people with pre and perinatal trauma. We work with people who've failed other kinds of both tapping and non-tapping therapies, say, for example, for weight loss or for relationships. So you're going to find a whole bunch of things in your life clear with simple tapping techniques, and you're going to find long-standing issues that you need more support for. And I've been doing tapping now for over a quarter of a century. I still tap. I tapped this morning. I have a practitioner. Do you get to the point where you are so wonderfully perfect? There's nothing left for you. Your life does get a lot better. and you still have challenges. So that's why you need certification, and you need that deep level of knowledge. You need formal training, and then when you learn these techniques, like you'll watch these videos, and you'll see us working with people and them healing. You'll think, oh, geez, I could never do that. That's just such an amazing set of techniques. How could I ever do that? We train our practitioners systematically in all 48 techniques. They start out, often they feel a lot of trepidation when they first apply them with clients, and then they'll be posting on our Facebook group, for example, saying, wow, I did my very first client session and it worked. So
Yeah.
these techniques are consistent and they work. And we know now from training thousands of people that they're incredibly effective and they work and they regulate the human body and stress every time. So we know they're reliable. And that's why places like the National Health Service, they're on Kaiser Permanente, has a web page, biggest health system in the US, on EFT tapping and how to apply it yourself. Why we're in places like the VA. When I got called by the VA, the first VA hospital, and they said, we want you to send us a person and train our staff in tapping. It was like such a powerful breakthrough because we now had three VA hospital systems do that, request that we train their staff. And now we're in the system. We're in Kaiser, we're in Cleveland Clinic, in we're in the National Health Service in the UK. We're in these in the French and German systems as well. So we're finding that we're now able to be in these big institutions to where it's not us outside the system recommending it to people. It's their doctor and their nurse and their therapist in the system that's saying it's time to tap and address your issues that way.
I'm hearing so many people saying, I heard about tapping through my therapist, or my doctor mentioned it. I hear it again and again. Now, for those who are interested in being certified, do they have to be a therapist already? Do they have to be a coach? Who is this for?
This is embarrassing, Jessica, but I'll tell you the truth. The hardest people for us to train are psychiatrists. Now, I want to apologize to any psychiatrists who are listening, and we have trained a number of psychiatrists and also people who are clinical psychologists, but they're really hard to train because they think healing is so hard. They don't realize how easy it can be. We actually find it much easier to train coaches and people who haven't had a career in healthcare, but it's a package. Our training is a start to end package. For example, we have a group of techniques we built into a program called coaching psychology. We have a state-of-the-art coaching psychology training you get in there. So you're learning all of the most advanced coaching psychology techniques right within certification. You're getting a course in energy trauma and healing. It has guest faculty like David Feinstein and Bessel van der Kolk and Mary Seiss and all these amazing people who are helping us learn these techniques. So the certification program has a start, middle, and end. You're mentored one-on-one by a certified mentor. They're literally reviewing your cases and then they're steering you and guiding you to being an excellent practitioner. So it's a whole package. You can do it easily if you are not a health professional, a mental health or medical health professional. You can do this and learn clinical EFT and be an effective practitioner afterwards. If you are a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you may have to unlearn a bunch of what you've learned because healing can be much easier than you've been led to believe. And tapping is so effective even at that simpler level.
I love that the community aspect of it because when you're doing something and you're training, it can feel really isolating if you're just reading things or just watching videos. I love kind of the hand holding, for lack of a better word. I think it's really, you're going into a community where you feel very supported, very safe, and you're able to get that practice in and those insights to build that confidence. It's not like a few hour training and then you're like, off into the world and where do I find clients? What do I do next? So tell me a little bit about what results you've seen with other people who have done this the whole course. They get to the other end. How do they begin to build their business?
Yeah, so you don't just want to do the course, you want to then apply it. And people either are choosing this as a new career, because if you get to come home every night and tell your husband, your wife, and your family about all these things, that is highly likely to interest you as a way of just being every day. So there are people who are stuck in dead-end jobs, who have jobs maybe that they're paying them well, but their souls are withering. You and I all know people who are saying, it's 18 years till retirement. I'm gritting my teeth. I'm white knuckling it, and I'm staying in there till retirement. It's like, no, go find a career that just makes your soul sing. So those are the career changers. And a lot of our people who we train and get certified are making it a career. Others have another career and they just want to help. Someone's a banker and they love doing this with people. They just do it 3 or 4 hours a week, or maybe 2 or 3 days a week. So there are people who do it part-time, there are people who do it full-time. And let's like one of our young graduates who I talked to at a recent live event. His name is Evan, professional guitarist, and is really good. But suddenly he's realizing that this serves me. Music did great for me. But for one thing, I am able to make $100 an hour and up, and I don't have to travel. I can do that right from my home or office on Zoom. So people are realizing they can make much more money doing this than they used to make, and it's really convenient. It's flexible. People do it around their children's schedules, so you have plenty of time for your kids or your parents or whoever else you have to help. So we find there are lots of people who are using it, and that the fact that they're able to now make a great living at it is a game changer. Because when I got involved with energy therapies many years ago, people thought, oh, we aren't real health professionals. I can't go talk to a doctor and say what I do. Now we train you in certification about the forms you need to go talk to a psychiatrist or a doctor or a nurse or a psychologist. So we are finding that our graduates and our respected members of these professions, some of them get hired by medical offices, by Kaiser, by the VA, by other professional settings. So the whole game has changed in terms of professional acceptance as a result of clinical EFT, all the research that EFT Universe has done over the years, and our mindsets now. The final thing we do is during certification, we know people may have internal barriers to charging. And healing is wonderful. We want to give it away for free, but we know people need to charge and charge what it's worth. And so we do a lot of tapping with people in the certification program on overcoming your mental obstacles to charging and charging what EFT is worth. A lot of it is mindset, and that's a tappable issue. So we help you in that way when you graduate to walk out with confidence, knowing not only do you have the techniques to offer the world, but you have the confidence to bring it to people and to charge appropriately.
I love that. When I started in this career, I mean, we had no money and not much experience, and we were very young, my brothers and I. And I remember someone asking me, how did you figure all of this out? How did you build this career? And I was like, I know that this is going to sound so ridiculous, but honestly, tapping. Because when I did not know what to do next, I would tap. When I felt like nothing really works for me, I've been trying so hard and we're not getting a break, I tap. And all of that internal work led to so many external results. And I'm happy that you were doing this because it's so true. We can learn everything about helping other people. And then if we have our own blocks about our self-worth, about our ability to charge, our ability to deserve money, our ability to be worthy, if those aren't addressed, we'll always find ways to get in our own way. So the best way to serve others is to do that inner work.
In fact, one of the requirements of certification is that you do 15 hours of personal work on your own issues. That's a very minimal amount of time. And we want to make sure that we graduate people who are ethical, who are dealing with their own deficits. None of us are perfect, and we all have issues in our lives. And there's no pretense that we are perfect people and that we've got it all figured out. So we have our students actually define a healing pathway for themselves and go do those 15 hours of work. And then we have them do ethical issues and ethical training regularly. Right now, we're introducing a whole layer of training around AI and VR ethics, artificial intelligence ethics, and virtual reality ethics. We're layering this all now into our certification program because 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there was no AI, there was no VR. Now you have to be aware of things like, just for example, when we present you with a lot of ethical dilemmas in our ethics module and training, one of those that just happened to me and happens to me all the time is my wife, my dear wife, Christine, picks up my cell phone to look at a message because we're on a shared thread, and she may see a confidential text from a client. What do you do about that? What do you do when you're working with a teenager and she's working with you on her laptop via Zoom? You're having a tapping session, and the issue with her is her mom and her relationship with her mom. And her mom walks in the room and you can't see her mom because her mom is not visible on the laptop. I mean, there are all these mind-bending ethical dilemmas. So we had a whole bunch of them that you had to solve when you were doing regular ethics training. Now we're introducing a whole series of trainings on this for our new practitioners, and we're having all of our existing practitioners who got certified 5 or 10 years ago take that as well because they need to know about AI and VR ethics as well. So we train people in all these things in certifications so that you're aware of those issues, and then you're working on your own issues as you move through your life. As you move through your life journey, you will have stuff come up that you didn't have earlier. As you heal at different layers, it's like peeling an onion. You'll find there are deeper layers there. You still have to heal. And so we emphasize that to be an ethical practitioner, life is an ever expanding journey of growth and understanding, and you'll be tapping the rest of your life.
I love that you're providing that for people who did the training years ago, that you can come back and get this new training as well. So that leads me to, I want to talk about the community for a second, because that's something you don't necessarily have full control of all these people. A community kind of builds on itself. And what have you been surprised about? What have you seen when it comes to the community of people who are either going through the program and also have already gone through it?
One of the comments we get at our workshops often is from people who are attending a workshop and say, I met other people at this workshop and I was blown away by the quality of people that EFT Universe attracts. So that's one thing you'll find. You'll find that sense of community is there, and there are remarkable other people who are going through certification with you. Many people make friends. They keep the rest of their lives. And we have a virtual community as well where people interact. And the love that people share there is just remarkable because they're sharing about certification, like, you pass a test, pass a quiz, and you post in the community, you pass the test. Everyone pats you on the back and sends you love and sends you little emojicons. That's really sweet. And then sometimes people have issues, like one woman whose mother died, and just the love that people shared with her. And we, of course, had to put her training on pause for a few months as she dealt with the emotional aftermath of that. And everyone came together to support her. So whenever I dip in there to post a new research study or to post an insight or a resource, I'm just awed by the love people have for each other, and that's expressed there. So people form friendships in certification that they often have the rest of their lives.
I love that. You were also telling me earlier how things have changed where you're seeing that there's more job openings for people who have this type of certification, that the ability to use it in different situations has expanded. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, and so for example, several of our practitioners have been hired by integrated medical clinics, functional medical clinics, and these are really emerging now as important in healthcare. We used to have the old mechanistic biomedical model. Now we realize that people need a whole bunch more than that, and so functional medicine has become one of the most important branches of medicine, and doctors and nurses and medical personnel understand that our psychology becomes our physiology, that our psychology and our psychological states wind up becoming our biology. And so we find that some of our graduates are hired by integrated medical clinics to tap with their clients, and they know that, for example, cortisol goes down. In various studies, it goes down by 25%, 31%, 41%. And that's one of the other remarkable things about certification. We've studied people taking our certification program, going to our 4-day professional workshop. Their cortisol drops by an average of 37%. Their baseline cortisol drops by an average of 30% at that workshop. Their heart rate variability improves. Their average heart rate goes down. Their respiration improves. Their immune system improves dramatically over the course of those 4 days. So as we measure their biology, people actually in certification, they're having a whole group of health benefits as a result. So medical professionals know now that psychology and stress, something like one study showed that something like 90% of all primary care visits to the doctor have in their origin stress. They're triggered by various kinds of stress-related conditions. And so doctors know that stress is triggering so many of these diseases or exacerbating these diseases. What they often don't know is how to deal with them. And so those doctors who are on the leading edge realize that if we can find a stress reduction method, that's going to affect all of those other downstream physiological factors. And they want tappers, they want EFT professionals to be part of their clinics and have that resource available.
So exciting. It's all so exciting. Dawson, is there anything else that you feel like is essential for us to keep in mind when it comes to this certification course? And more particular, I would like to know, who is this not for? Like, who is this for and who is this not for? Because I think making that distinction would be helpful.
Yeah, so it's for people who are either looking to make a career change or to supplement their income with a few hours a week that are highly paid by the hour. So that's one group of people it's for. And then people who, for example, are really feeling that they're good where they are. If you're on a career that is just totally satisfying to you and you don't feel you need to make a change, then this may not be for you. You have to also really bring some effort and intention and put some work into this. It isn't as though you show up there, you take a few online courses, and we certify you. You are not getting certified. I, Dawson Church, and my education team are certifying you. When you go up there on the EFT website, if you're on the EFT Universe website, we are certifying that you know clinical EFT. It's a mistake people often think they make. They think they're earning certification. Actually, we're affirming to the world you are qualified when you go up there on the website. Very occasionally, there's somebody who doesn't make it, and we can't help them out. So that is what you want to bear in mind: is that you need to come in there, you need to do the work, and it's about 4 or 5 hours a week for the 1 year of certification. Now, to help you do that, we have you give you a series of resources right early on about how to develop good study habits and good study skills to put in that 4 or 5 hours a week. Like, for example, having a structured time. When I was getting certified 20 years ago or more, Saturday mornings was my time. Every Saturday morning was my 4 or 5 hours to really apply myself to that. So you need to bring the discipline to that. You need to do the work. You'll be doing 40 or more sessions with clients, and you'll do those with a mentor. We'll guide you, but again, you're the one that is doing that work and sharing those sessions with your mentor. So it's not a casual certification. It's not something you just do online and then you're certified. You are needing to do that in-person work with your mentor, with your clients, take in-person classes, and then this is we take your skill set really, really seriously. We want to make sure you do too. So bring that mindset to it. Is it joyful? Absolutely. Does it take time, focus, energy? Absolutely. And you will find as you put that time, focus, and energy in, you get out far more than you put in.
Yes. And because you hold that high standard, other people see that if you are certified, it's because they know you've gone through that deep training and that mentorship and working with other people. So it the certification means more because of the standards that you've created. And that's really exciting for everybody, for the whole field. It really benefits the whole field of energy medicine, energy psychology.
Yeah, it's just wonderful to me to have seen over the last few decades how we've gone from this fringe field. I mean, energy healing back when I got first involved in it in the 80s was regarded as the fringe of the fringe, beyond the fringe. So woo-woo, you never even mention it to your doctor. Now it's doctors, it's nurses, it's hospital systems, it's the VA, it's Cleveland Clinic. How much more straight-laced can you get than that? So
Yeah. So what can people do next if they feel nudged, if they feel that calling that they want to do this?
So read our enrollment page really carefully. There are a bunch of frequently asked questions at the bottom that'll answer every possible question you might have. So read through those and then book a call if you'd like to talk to a real life person. Again, community is one of the fundamental core values of EFT Universe. Everything we do is based on community. So if you want to talk to a real life person, talk to a mentor, then you can actually have a conversation one-on-one and see if this is right for you. So read the page. You can just enroll right there on the page. If you'd like to talk to somebody, go ahead and talk to somebody. Make sure it's right for you. Do that soul searching and also ask yourself, if you are getting that nudge, what will my life be like in 1 year and in 5 years if I do this? And then ask yourself, if you're getting the nudge and you ignore it, nudge go away. And what will your life be like if you just keep on going along the path you're on with whatever psychological issues you have, with whatever physiological issues you have, whatever symptoms you're dealing with? What will happen is if you don't take advantage of this wonderful opportunity. So really take this question into your heart and make a decision based on where your heart is guiding you. Your intuition will speak to you loudly and clearly. And if you have any fears, tap them away and then see what is truly happening at your core. So we want people who are passionate. As everyone listening to us here can tell, Jessica, you are passionate about this. I am passionate about this. You'll find a whole community of passionate people at EFT Universe, and we also are passionate about getting this work way out there into the world. In my most recent studies and my most recent papers, we've done an evaluation. We find that over 40 million people in the world are tapping. We want this to be in every school, in every prison, in every workplace, in every place people are stressed. So we're on a mission to bring this to the world. We want to see and graduate thousands of new practitioners as part of this passionate community. We want to see a future in which PTSD, anxiety, and depression are rare. Like, if you think back just 100 years, my grandparents were really worried about things like polio, cholera, diphtheria. I mean, I didn't even know what those things are. Imagine if in a few years our children and grandchildren hardly knew what anxiety, depression, or PTSD were. We had that power in our hands, and I am just passionate about seeing this community bring the healing of this amazing technique of clinical EFT to the world. You have done all this work at the Tapping Solution Foundation in places like Rwanda and these school shootings. I'm training now, I'm not training school teachers and therapists in Ukraine. We can bring this work to a suffering world and see the entire world shift direction as a result. So we want people who are part of this grand healing mission. Sure, you'll heal yourself, but you will have something so powerful to bring, not just to your immediate community, but to those in the world around you. So that's really the vision of where all this is going and the potential of clinical EFT for the world.
Dawson, you are one of the smartest people I know. The research you've done is unbelievable, but I don't understand how you got, one of the biggest brains and one of the biggest hearts. It's quite amazing. I don't know how it all fits in your body, but before even starting this interview, you had we closed our eyes together and we set the intention and we thought about all the people we could help and the ripple effect and just knowing your heart and where you come from and the integrity that you have and your ability to empower others to be that light. it really does. It is going, it's so impactful. It will change generations. And I just want to thank you for providing this because it's not easy to create something where people feel so supported, so loved, get confident, can go out there, build a career. It's really just an incredible thing that you're doing. So I just want to thank you for leading the way for creating this. And really, it's such a blessing. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? I mean, you've already left us with so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessica. Yeah, it is a privilege to me to see people heal, and I get humbled every day by the power of this method. And I know it's not me. I've now seen thousands of our graduates do it, and I know it's the method. So I love seeing that effect in other people's lives. And as a community, we are carrying this forward in a powerful way. So I'm so grateful to everyone who is doing this healing work. And again, one of our other values in EFT Universe is we respect everybody in the healing community. So we make sure that that approach is there in everything we do and say. And the final thought I would have is that we're here for a reason. You're here on Earth for a reason. You got born, dropped into this thing called the human body. You have this thing called the mind. You have this thing called the heart for a reason. What's the purpose of your life? Why are you here? And you want to ask yourself these deep questions, tap away any obstacles to discovering that. And as we meditate, as we tap, as we express our full potential, as we release the obstacles to our potential, we are able to be a light in the world and shine that light to many other people. So that's ultimately what we're all about. And I believe, despite the news, despite all of the turmoil in the world, I believe we're on the verge of a huge positive cultural shift globally. And I think that EFT, I think the people who are here with us on this call, I believe that people in our community are part of that shift. And so we're going to see a very different world in 5, 10, 20 years from the one we have now. There's so much data to support that possibility. And so I love seeing this wave of healing. I had one friend I talked to recently, and he was saying to me, he said, Dawson, I tap, I meditate, I've so shifted my life in the last few years, and then I go visit my parents. And they don't know a thing about tapping meditation. They're not interested, and they never have helped themselves in any of those kinds of ways. And you know what they do, Dawson? They suffer. They've been suffering my whole life. They're suffering now, and they'll probably die suffering. And he was just like really moved by the fact that we have in our hands, our generation, Jessica, we and the people who are hearing us today, we have this tool that can literally eliminate much of the suffering in the world. Can we eliminate all of it? No, there are always going to be things going on that we can't fix and can't help. We can fix and help a lot of it, and that's our mission as a community. So we have these tools now. It's the time to apply them. And again, with clinical EFT and certification, you find your ability to apply them is unlocked in an amazing way. And you start to be one of those people who does shed that trauma and is that light in the world. So we are all bright lights here, and I love being part of this community of light and the change it's producing, the shifts it's producing in society and the world.
It's truly amazing. And again, Dawson, thank you so much. And for those that are listening, if your heart is nudging you to do this, listen to your heart. Even if it means you just have to sit with yourself a little bit, check in. Like you said, these are for people who are really ready to be a light in this world. And I know the people we attract, and I know that people are listening to us for a reason. So I'm excited for what's ahead. And I thank you for leading the way. Dawson, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica, for everything you've done, everything you are. What a joy. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Every blessing.